The Americans have got a problem. The USS Gerald Ford, often touted as the mightiest battleship on the planet, is out of action. Why? Because apparently there was a fire in the laundry. Is that true? Or is it in fact a case of pants on fire?
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you!
Boring. Boring. Boring.
Okay, get it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. That's exactly what you're doing. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome once again to another edition of Lembit Öpik Live here on Unprecedented TV. Before I say anything else, I'll be told off by my team if I don't remind you to like and subscribe at Unprecedented TV on YouTube. It costs you nothing, take you 30 seconds, and it helps us a lot. So that's at Unprecedented TV on YouTube. Also, you can follow me at Lembit Öpik. There's only one with a blue tick. That's me. Now, I want to ask you a question. If you owned the mightiest battleship ever to sail on the seas, at least according to the Americans, that's the USS Gerald Ford, and then you were to tell me that you had to take it out of action for a year or two because of a fire in the laundry, would you expect me to believe you? That is exactly what we're being told by the United States of America military. They say that apparently there's a fire in the laundry, and now the USS Gerald Ford has had to limp off to Croatia, no less, to get repaired, and it's going to be out of action for a long, long time. 200 people injured, apparently, from smoke inhalation. It's a nuclear-powered battleship. You wouldn't think that kind of thing could take it out of action, and we'll talk about what the Iranians have said about that in a minute. But the question is, can we believe it, or is there something rather more sinister afoot? Has it, in fact, been damaged by an attack by the Iranians? They certainly tried pretty hard. Who can you believe? Well, joining me now to discuss that is none other than Warren Thornton, all the way from the Philippines. How are you doing, Warren?
I'm doing absolutely fine. I'm doing much better than the Gerald Ford.
Well, yes, but have you got enough fuel? I've been told that they're close to rationing petrol or oil in the Philippines on account of all this little local difficulty in the Middle East. Is that true?
Yes, it absolutely is. And in fact, Marcos is trying to blindside America. He's actually approached America and said, we need to buy Russian oil because we are literally critical. Now, you never quite really know in the Philippines, of course. It's not a case of is there corruption in the Philippines? It's how corrupt your politicians are. But what we certainly have is petrol going through the roof, gas prices going through the roof. Prices have almost doubled. A boat, say a trip on a boat from the mainland to one of the islands here, instead of costing you 100 peso, has now gone up to 200. So literally prices are doubling for everything, travel, food, you name it. And this is causing a real problem here in the Philippines.
And that's because of the infamous Strait, Strait of Hormuz there, which I suppose is at the heart of Iran's current bargaining power. We're not really going to talk about that so much right now, but I suppose what's happening to you is pretty good evidence of the fact that there's a problem going on there, and a bad one at that. But let's talk about the problem I really want to talk to you about now, and that is to do with the USS Gerald Ford. It is USS Gerald Ford arrives in Croatia port, and they claim there was a fire on board. They say that apparently there was some kind of a laundry fire. Now, you're a military man. Please explain this to somebody who hasn't been in the military. I was in the combined cadet force for 2 weeks, but then I left because they wanted me to get my hair cut, and I had to hide from Maxwell, I think was the chief, the commanding officer. Eventually caught me in a corridor about 2 weeks later. He said, you're not really interested in the army, are you, Öpik? I mean, no, I'm not. He said, all right. And that was it. I deserted, but maybe dishonorably, but with that too much fuss. Anyway, so Gerald Ford, USS Gerald Ford, this fantastic fighting ship. I think we got another picture of it as well. I'm not sure if it is Gerald. Is that the Gerald Ford?
Yeah.
Is that the Gerald Ford? Yeah, massive thing, 1,100 feet long. It's about 330 meters. How can that vessel be brought to its knees by a fire in the laundry room?
Well, there's two explanations to this, Lembit, because we're hearing reports that it's going to be out of action for 2 years, which sounds absolutely incredible. And of course, it does stretch credulity. So it's either been hit and they're covering it up, or there's been a deliberate fire started, and they've deliberately started this fire, obviously, because they've been away from home. They had trouble, as you know, with the plumbing aspect of things, and the, shall we say, the living quarters downstairs being a real problem. And of course, we've had 600 sailors that have been having to sleep elsewhere because the laundry room is right next to the accommodation. Not a good idea. But of course, gas-fed pipes can cause that. And literally, if you turn the gas on, set light to it, you can keep causing fires indeterminately. So it's either a case of fire mutiny or it's been hit by something that has caused a real major problem. We're also hearing on the quiet that it's not just the laundry room fire, but it actually has a turbine issue.
So hang on, I didn't know most of what you've just said. You're saying that this super duper, super big, super powerful arm of American might and symbol of America's power has got unhappy sailors on it, so unhappy that they might be mutinying. Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been reports. First of all, they've been missing from home. You remember they were meant to do a 6-month tour. And then, of course, you looked at that they were being deployed for another 2 months. They had problems with the plumbing. And, of course, there was talk of people stuffing T-shirts down lavatories to block things up. And, of course, you have to remember, it's not like the sailors in the old days where they just go along and everything else. People are quite, how can I put it? Some people in the military and some people in the Navy and the Royal Air Force are quite, shall we say, quite delicate sometimes now in the modern Navy and everything else. They're not quite the bluff and hearty fellows they used to be. Remember that people are missing loved ones. They're missing, of course, funerals, birthdays, and everything else. And morale has a big issue when and this isn't talked about enough. When you first go and fight in a war or whatever, if you've already got bad morale, that is not good for you going along. And of course,
you're making them sound really soft. I mean, look at that thing. It's got like scary aircraft and bombs and missiles, and it's grey and everything. You think that's invincible?
Yeah, it is that way when you sort of look at it and you think, well, HMS Diversity Inclusion probably looks the same. The problem that we have, of course, is the mindset and morale of people taking part in the war. Equipment doesn't feel anything. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have. And I'm not saying this is an absolute fact, but there are so many stories leaking from the unhappiness of the sailors on that ship. It is much better to get that one out of the way and then maybe take something like the George W. Bush, which is going into the area, and take that down there and literally go home, get the thing completely refitted. It's only a float. It's an FOB. And now the term FOB is normally forward operating base. This is a floating oceanic bullseye, just waiting if you get too close. And they've sailed away 3 or 4 times. These missiles, they'll slam them into the decks, and that'll be that.
Well, that's what the Iranians are claiming, I think. They've certainly claimed it about the Abraham Lincoln. Iran says it hit the USS Abraham Lincoln with cruise missiles. The US Navy says it didn't even come close to the aircraft carrier. So there's claim and counterclaim here.
They're both lying.
Well, what happened?
So basically what happened was a reconnaissance drone was flown low across the water, so nobody was able to detect it whatsoever. and then it hovered literally above the Abraham Lincoln for about 3 or 4 minutes. So God knows how much detail it was able to record or photograph while it was there. The Americans then spotted it and they knocked it down. And of course, they knocked it down and it landed on the USS Abraham Lincoln and started quite a large fire. And then the decision was taken then to move all the carrier group away, a decent distance away. And of course, there were 1 or 2 and we're hearing this from the Pentagon. There was 1 or 2 people, shall we say, were held to account for not spotting this drone, but they decided to take the carrier group a bit further away. So, of course, they could see these reconnaissance drones coming from a long way away. But the thing was, they managed to sneak a reconnaissance drone in underneath the radar and literally hovering over the Abraham Lincoln.
But I don't understand. How can, help me out here, how can a reconnaissance drone, which presumably didn't even have any armaments, damage one of these aircraft, Abraham Lincoln, which is, I imagine, is close to the same size as the other one? How can it damage it so much that they have to take it away?
Well, the whole idea is obviously shooting these down. Now, these reconnaissance drones, you have to remember, they're full of fuel as well. So, of course, if it lands in the wrong place, what they were stupid enough to do, Lembit, was actually shoot it down while it was still hovering over the actual, but then again, people don't think clearly sometimes in battle situations, oh, my God, it's going to bomb us or whatever, and suddenly they open fire. It only takes a little bit of panic rather than waiting and seeing what it's going to do, which, of course, it could have been fully armed. They didn't know, but they should have known that it was a reconnaissance drone, and they shouldn't have let it anywhere near the ship. But here's the problem. Aircraft carriers, everybody thinks because of what they carry fantastic firepower, but they are a floating bullseye. I'm sorry, anybody that thinks aircraft carriers are going to be the be-all and end-all against ballistic missiles, 50-50, but hypersonic missiles, you've got a real problem. And if you go to China and they're able to do these launch pads of, around about 10,000 drones at a time, if you get a swarm of 10,000 drones coming in from all different directions into your ship, you're going to run out of missiles that'll overwhelm your ship, damage the flight deck, and then what are you doing? You can't fly planes.
Well, yeah, just on the Iranian claim again, Iran's IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, says carrier targeted with missiles and drones, I think they said as well. And they do claim that this happened. Have you seen any pictures of the damage? Because I haven't, and we weren't able to find any.
No, what I've got is reports from our sources in the Pentagon, but we can't get any pictures because that's absolutely banned. There is also an exclusion zone around the ship. Once it puts into dock, then we'll be able to, when it eventually puts into dock, we'll be able to see the damage, because they won't be able to repair that, Lembit. And of course, there's lots of fake pictures out there of carriers that were damaged in the Vietnam War and stuff like that. But there is a complete media blackout on this, and as much as that's going to be. The USS Gerald Ford, of course, they can't hide it anymore because it's, as they say, it's not only been to Crete, but now, of course, it's going to Croatia, and they want to keep it as quiet as possible. But, of course, it's leaked out. But the same thing has happened to the Abraham Lincoln. These things are floating targets, Lembit. They really are. People don't realise.
Yeah, that's it there. That's the USS Gerald Ford. A raging fire in its laundry facilities and persistently clogged toilets have taken the $13 billion USS Ford aircraft carrier out of the Iran fight, and it could remain out of service for a year. The massive 1,106-foot-long vessel left the Red Sea last week and has been docked in Crete for repairs. I thought it was Croatia, sorry. Crete for repairs since Monday. Far from the air and sea attack on Iran it had joined 2 weeks earlier. Well, that's just ridiculous. What a blunder. It's such a public relations own goal. And the title for our show today, Pants on Fire, as in liar, liar, I have to say, it lends itself to skepticism. Let's put it that way. And after the break, I'm going to show you what the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has said. But We've got pictures of this one. If it wasn't a fire, surely you would see the hole in the side.
Well, here's the thing, Lembit, as well, and of course the British military are taking the mickey left, right, and centre here because, of course, Trump's been very, shall we say, disparaging about the British Navy, and there was it actually got taken down, but on one of the British naval websites, they actually put, well, at least our carriers might not be the best, but at least they're better than bog standard.
Very good. Yeah, I see what you did there. Right, stay with us. You're watching Lembit Öpik here on Lembit Öpik Live on Unprecedented TV. Please do like and subscribe. Not the only show you'll get. You'll find literally hundreds of shows, which we all leave up on the archive. Whether our predictions are right or wrong on the shows, they are there as a record. All you have to do is go to @Unprecedented TV, and then you'll find great shows, including Tim Scott Uncancelled. As Tim Scott Uncancelled, you'll find all of the back catalogue of his shows together with mine and everybody else's at Unprecedented TV. It just takes you 30 seconds to sign up. It means so much to us. Please do that. Meanwhile, we're talking to Warren Thornton, who's based out in the Philippines there. Bit of an oil shortage, but not a shortage of knowledge. We were talking about the Gerald Ford, a remarkable, vast, and I think quite a beautiful vessel in its own way, I suppose, if you like that kind of thing. Certainly, I'd be quite interested to see it sometime, but like with my own eyes. But the Islamic Republic Revolutionary Islamic, I can't remember what they're called. Thank you, the Islamic Revolution Guard Corps, IRGC. Yep. It says it rejected the Pentagon Commons narrative as absurd. This is the narrative that the main laundry spaces caught fire, and this is what the IRGC said, and you can imagine them almost smiling when they said it. What kind of military giant is this that faces a crisis and is forced to leave the battlefield due to a fire occurring in its laundry room? And they go on to say they'd already warned that the presence of the aircraft carrier in the Red Sea made it a legitimate target for the Iranians as a direct threat to Iran, which is technically correct because they got all those aircraft. Iran's armed forces have previously reported successful drone and missile strikes against another U.S. carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln. Quite a lot of propaganda going on, as I said earlier.
Yeah.
Will we ever get to the truth?
Yeah, we will get to the truth because eventually, as I say, it's going to have, somebody somewhere will leak the information. And of course, we will get to know. Now, we already know about the Abraham Lincoln. Gerald Ford has just put in, and remember, its comms were badly damaged in the fire as well. But here's the thing that is a major problem for me, Lembit. And this is sailors and soldiers and people going off to war, they're quite superstitious. And when things like this start to happen, you get, rather than mission creep, as they call it, you get brain creep. You know, this isn't going well. What a 24-carat mess up this is. And
yeah, I'm glad you watched your language there. I know where you're heading with that.
And then basically what happens is this sort of thing gets talked about amongst the soldiers. Now, if the officers hear it, they clamp down on it straight away. But trust me, this talk goes on.
Yeah. Right. So I do know that there's a lot of superstition in ships. I used to work as, and hopefully will again, as a speaker on cruise ships. And you could see there was a lot of superstition, partly because you are beholden to the weather to an extent. Yeah. And even vast cruisers, vast ocean liners are beholden to it. I was actually on the Queen Mary 2 once, coming out from Canada, and you could see there was going to be a lot of weather, or was it Boston? Somewhere in the north there. And we were roughly in the same place where the Perfect Storm film, starring George Clooney about a boat, was depicted. And we
on the Scotch cat.
Yeah, more or less. Some Flemish cat,
Flemish cap, sorry.
I think it was around there somewhere, but it was really stormy, 55-foot waves. I've never seen anything like it before. And the ship was rolling, and it actually caught fire. And they put it out. But there was a period when they were thinking we could abandon ship. It wasn't the weather to do it in, I can tell you. But
no.
So I realized the ships are beholden to weather, but this isn't about weather. You're saying it could be an own goal. You're saying in both cases, with the USS Abraham Lincoln, they got a drone landing on it, which caught fire. How big are these drones?
It wasn't even landing, it was hovering, and they shot it down.
How big are these drones?
Depending on, I mean, some of them are absolutely massive. They're three or four times as long as a man. But of course, you do get you get smaller reconnaissance drones that are probably the same length as a man, maybe 10 feet. You do get some that are, absolutely massive. The very high altitude ones are incredible in their size and scope. But now we have reconnaissance drones of all types and all sizes. And of course, depending on the size of whichever of these reconnaissance drones was brought down, would then determine not only that, but the amount of fuel that was in it. And of course, the size of the fire would be literally on what it hits as well. So of course, it's never a good thing. But of course, obviously, you can imagine the panic on the faces of the first people to discover that there's an Iranian reconnaissance drone hovering above the flight deck.
Yeah, I'll tell you a joke about that, which I can't tell you on air because it's unseemly. But I'll tell you when we're off air. Let's think about the story so far. Then, for some reason, two of the mightiest warships in the American fleet are both out of action. USS Abraham Lincoln, USS Gerald Ford. Whether it was liar, liar, pants on fire, or pants on fire, literally, one's out for over a year.
Yeah.
And then the Abraham Lincoln scurried off as well.
Here we go, Lembit. And you have to go by, what all you have to go by is the nonsense that CENTCOM have been coming out with, which, of course, is the operational theatre. And both sides come out with propaganda during a war. We know that. But the CENTCOM have been, if you're going to come out with propaganda, or at least make it believable. Now, CENTCOM have come out and said that the 10 aeroplanes so far that have fallen out of the sky and the ones that have been hit on the ground, no such thing took place. No Iranian missiles have taken down any American aircraft, which is clear and utter nonsense. And of course, they're playing down the amount of damage that's happened on the ground, obviously with the AWACS and the couple of KC-135 tankers that have been smashed up. We also had the one that was taken out of the air, which they said they collided into each other. Then there was a mad Kuwaiti pilot who shot down 3 F-15s. Then there was an air defense accidentally hit a Kuwaiti, we've had all sorts of stories. And when you start lying, because Iran quite clearly have the capability and have taken down these aircraft, when you start lying like this, you get a case of the boy who cried wolf. So anything they say about the Gerald Ford is going to be looked at with a, shall we say, people sort of looking at it and going, that'd be the politest thing. And of course, people who just downright going, yeah, absolutely lying through your teeth on the far end of the spectrum.
Yeah, well, we had KC-135s, the tankers there, based on the Boeing 707, a marvelous aircraft. I'm pretty sure I flew on 707s when I was a really small child. And these aircraft, 60 years old, they got over 100 of these as far as I know. And the two that got smashed up in the sky, one landed, the other one lost with 6 crew. And then then we've got I think we've got so these are worth about $70 to $80 million each, as I understand it. But then there's that's the AWAC. Now they're essentially electronic platforms for spying and coordinating activity and everything else. Now that's worth about $700 million. That's really painful. It's really painful. $700 million. So this is beginning to add up. Now I'm told from you that it's costing them $3 billion a day.
Yes.
So it's actually a relatively small additional cost, but in money terms, but they've only got about 14 or 16 of these, as far as I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, these getting hit on the ground is a major embarrassment. And of course, the KC-135s, that's at least 4 or 5 we know have been either taken off the ground or very badly damaged so that they can't fly. It's becoming, as you see already, and then you've got the Gerald Ford having that problem, then you've got the Abraham Lincoln, and you can see where suddenly this is, where the superstition starts to creep in. I've got a bad feeling about this. And morale, this is what affects morale quite badly. Then you're seeing people coming back in coffins. You're seeing injured American soldiers climbing off planes in Germany at Ramstein Air Force Base. And immediately you get an uneasy feeling. Suddenly, and I don't mean this in any disparaging way whatsoever, suddenly this isn't guys on camels and sandals that they thought it was in World War II, charging the Turkish guns. This is people who have got weapons that can kill you. And suddenly you're not the bully boys anymore. You're taking on somebody who can actually end your life.
So, and this is a thing. I've known the Iranians pretty well, and I've consistently thought they're being massively underestimated. And the evidence seems to be like it. Indicating this is the case. Not for now, but I'm interested on another occasion to talk with you about what the Houthis coming in on the other side in the Red Sea are going to contribute. Let's not talk about it now because it's a whole new different subject. But meanwhile, while all this is going on, it seems to me that the one person has been completely forgotten. He's not in the party anymore. There he is, Volodymyr Zelensky, who says the most unsurprising thing I've heard all year. Zelensky, Russia took satellite images of US airbase in Saudi Arabia days before Iranian strike. It's pathetic, isn't it? I mean, it's like saying it's sunny in Saudi.
It is quite incredible. And the level of cope from political commentators out there and Americans out there is quite staggering. Do you think you're the only ones who are allowed to do this? For 5 years, you've been giving lots of information to Ukraine and so have Britain to allow strikes to be taken into Russia. Now you can feel some way about Russia, that's absolutely fine. But what you cannot, you can go, oh well, they're terrible people. And once again, it's this dissonance, this cognitive dissonance that people have, Lembit, of we're not the bad people. If you are targeting or you're helping neo-Nazi lunatics or Ukrainians or whatever you want to call them, or nationalists, target people inside Russia and they're killing civilians. When Russia do it back to you, you've suddenly got a problem.
Yeah. Well, it's that's not something I expect we'll see much of. Zelensky and Trump, it's like he's just lost interest in it completely, hasn't he?
Well, they were always going to do this, Lembit. They were always going to walk away. The whole idea was to leave the EU holding the bag while they go off and deal with Persia. There's actually a paper done by the Brookings Institute called The Path to Persia, 2009. I mean, this has been in the works for years and years and years. And you go and have a look at the Brookings Institute paper, the other one from 2009, extending Russia. Let's get Russia into a war. Ukraine might get destroyed in the meantime, but they're actually in the paper. It says Ukraine may well get destroyed, but then again, that's a small price to pay if it achieves our territorial ambition.
Doesn't say that, does it?
It does. I'll send you the document.
Wow.
It is. You see, these people, when they're in these think tanks and they get, and this is what America used for American foreign policy, remember. These people in think tanks, they don't think like you and I do. They don't think about people. They think about power, control, resources.
But the result, but at the same time, like that smashed up plane, which we might be able to get up again, that's not theoretical damage. Thanks.
No,
that's real damage in that picture, and that's not irreparable as far as I can see. It'll be used for parts, but I would imagine if it was worth $900 million or something, they'd probably get $100 million worth out of that, maybe.
Yeah,
it's
well,
just
the scrapyard to be quite happy. The scrapyard to be quite happy.
Well, you can probably use the engines, probably use certain parts there. But
maybe you could paint the dome brown and call it the biggest minstrel in the world.
The apparently people are injured as well. I know you cover in your show estimates for that, but there's going to be a death toll. And and once again, I won't rain on your parade, but I know in your show, which will be going out later on today if you're watching this live, otherwise in the archive if you're not watching it live, the question you ask in that, and let's not answer it now because it's already covered in your show, is how much pain will the American and British people accept before they say enough? So that's real damage, real damage. Now, I want to finish in a very uncharacteristic place, but we're fair here. There's one man who's doing quite well out of this war. There he is. He seems to be actually doing surprisingly well. Starmer's popularity boosted by Iran war rift with Trump, poll shows. The League of Prime Ministers' refusal to kowtow to Trump over Iran has been popular among voters. Poll for the Independent finds. I am amazed to say I think he's got this right.
He's got it half right, Lembit. Let's not forget that he's been using Akrotiri Air Base and allowing and literally doing flights to get, shall we say, targeting against the Yemenis for Saudi Arabia and America. And of course, they've been using it, and they certainly used it in the first war between Iran and Israel. So they were allowing them to use Akrotiri Air Base. And of course, he's been allowing them to restock all their planes. So they're flying to Fairford, they're loading up with munitions. So we're well involved in this war. We're just not going to put boots on the ground or put any troops in real harm's way. So I'll give Starmer a sort of 5 out of 10. Yes, he's trying to look, as though I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that. What he's basically saying is we're not going to get British troops killed if we can help it, but we'll help in every single way possible. I mean, they're loading bombers from Fairford. They're loading bombers from Akrotiri. They're also using AWACS planes. They're also using spy planes to target people inside Iran. So they're certainly in this war. It's like the Saudi Arabians, Lembit, where they turn around, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, all saying, oh, we're not in this war. You're allowing the Americans to fly from your bases and bomb another country. What part of that do you think is you are not involved in the war? You most certainly are. But Starmer's refusing. Starmer's only going so far, and he's refusing to go any further, Lembit.
You know what? I'm going to mark him down now a bit based on what you said, because you're right. If we're enabling the bad behavior, in other words, we're accessory to the war, as far as Iran's concerned, the places that are enabling the US-Israeli action, I suppose, are targets.
I'll tell you who I do want to give a massive big up to, rather than Starmer. Have a big up to Spain. They've turned around and said, no airports, no airfields, no nothing. We're not helping, go away. And I think that's absolutely brilliant.
What about, just out of interest, Italy, Meloni, who I'm generally quite impressed with, and then Orban in Hungary?
Meloni will do whatever Trump tells her. Meloni, Trump, and Elon Musk have a bit of a relationship, shall we say, that is quite close. And of course, then you're looking at Orban as well. Orban is not going to want his airfield used. At the moment, Orban is very, very taken with what's going on with Ukraine, and he's got his own fight with the European Union coming up, which of course is over the election. So Orban is pretty much just count me out of it. I've got enough trouble on my plate as it is. Thank you very much. Someone
on my team was talking about Keir Starmer and remarked to me that he was surprised I agree with him. And somebody else on the team said, well, I think they got, there it is. Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Yeah, absolutely. This is manna from heaven from Starmer, because of course he's a deeply unpopular prime minister. Merz, Macron, Starmer, all these young global leaders who have taken over are deeply unpopular in the countries because they put everybody else's interests first and not theirs, of course. And here's where we have a problem, and it is a problem, Lembit, is that Starmer, he's only getting this half right. Once again, he's playing to the gallery. It's rather like, shall we say, the public inquiry into grooming gangs. Once again, he was playing to the gallery. It was like the Mandelson problem. Of course, he was playing to the gallery. And of course, he's doing the same thing here.
Oh, well, therefore, my attempt at largesse and giving the impression of being balanced has been blown out of the water.
Sorry.
Basically, yeah. Fire in the hold. No, back to USS Gerald Ford again. How does Trump get out of this situation?
He's in a terrible hole, actually, Lembit, because if he walks away, he's going to get absolutely slaughtered by the people who are propping him up at the moment, and that is the pro-Israel lobby and all the war hawks.
Well, and the man himself there, Netanyahu, who I still suspect dragged him into this war.
Yes, Benny led him by the nose. He said, basically, we're going in. And, of course, once you accept, and I don't care what anybody said, Trump was meant to drain the swamp, not become the biggest creature swimming in it. And here's the thing, when you accept 200 million as a donation from a rabidly pro-Israel, shall we say, foundation or woman, then you have a real problem. And you have, as the Americans always say, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And eventually you have to pay the piper. And if the piper comes calling, and of course, it's deeply unpopular war with Americans because we've already crossed the Rubicon. American soldiers have already died. So now we have to go full throttle or he has to completely back off. And my belief on this from everyone that I speak to, the State Department and the Pentagon are very worried about this because the State Department are pushing for boots on the ground, even if that means limited teams going in and performing surgical strikes here and there. They don't see how that achieves, first of all, getting the Iranian government out of there. It doesn't achieve getting rid of the uranium that they have. It doesn't achieve reopening the Straits of Hormuz. I mean, Khark Island, you're talking about, what, close on 1,600 kilometers, maybe 1,400 kilometers away from the Gulf of Hormuz. So taking that is no good. Just where you see that little pointer there, you can see that's Keshim Island, right off the coast of Iran, right next to the Strait of Hormuz. That's an absolute bullseye fest. You don't want to be taking there. And of course, the other place that they're talking about is the Bay of Chabahar, the port city of Chabahar, which has mountains on literally hemming you in. So you're not protected by those mountains. You're hemmed in, basically, and you become a floating bullseye as well. So all three islands are a bad idea, Lembit.
We shall see what happens. Where can people get another dose of Thornton?
By all means, come over to Warren Thornton on Patreon, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And of course, on Sunday nights, we have a special treat because we have the wonderful Lembit Öpik from Unprecedented from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
You say all the right things, Warren. Always a pleasure to talk with you, and we'll get you on as the story develops as well. There is one rocket which I admire the United States for. It's the one that's going to take 4 people to the moon. If you're watching this live, we'll be doing what we can to cover it during this week. But as for these other rockets, I'm happy for them to have people on top, but I don't like them to be aimed at people. That is Warren Thornton. That's what we've got time for today. I think that there is a huge problem now. 2 of the great battleships in the American Navy, both out of action for different reasons. Not clear what those reasons are, but out of action, they go. Whether that's going to make a difference is questionable. But what's really, really vexing many people is this. Why is Donald Trump sending 10,000 Marines, as I understand it, in the direction of the Iran war? Is he really going to land them on the ground? Find out more by going to Warren Thornton's show, which will be findable on the archive or live if you're watching this live as well. In the meantime, thanks to the team. Thanks to Warren. More than anything, thanks to you for having the courage to think for yourself. I like America. I have massive respect for Americans. My concern is that they're taking some risks now, which might land badly for them and, frankly, simply cause what could have been a peacekeeping president to tarnish his reputation. Let's hope not, because the consequence is measured in human lives. I'm Lembit Öpik. That was Lembit Öpik Live here on Please follow on YouTube. Have a good day.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages.